Good day, people. This is Catalin Rata, your host and facilitator into The Aftermath, a podcast where we uncover patterns and reverse engineer the future so you can spot opportunities and threats before everyone else does. Welcome back to Prices in the AI Era. I'm continuing this series with Martonca, founder of SoftFight and architect of the Just Value framework. In our first episode, we explored what happens when AI sets all prices. We discovered that mindset and change management are the key areas to focus on when starting this journey, and that we should look out for speed of deal making as a solid indicator for AI in pricing. And final takeaway of the previous episode was when everyone has the same AI tools, it's not the AI that differentiates you. It's what you're amplifying. But here's the thing. Most companies lose deals before they even quote a price. They lose them in discovery stage because they never actually understood what the customer values. Now, imagine AI handles that conversation instead of humans. We tapped a little bit into this topic on our previous episode with Manu, but today's question is, what if only AI talks to customers? Let's explore what the aftermath of that is. Manu, it's great to have you back.
Good to see you again, Catalin.
Awesome. So let's just dive right into the first question. What makes discovery call so critical in complex B2B sales? Where are deals really won or lost?
Many years ago, I used to have this as a critical milestone in my sales process. I would not even talk to customers without doing the discovery call. Now, like if we couldn't schedule a meeting and see the buyers face to face online most of the time, but I would never answer to purely written requests or just emails or someone saying, "Oh, I have this project, give me some offer." And if we couldn't do a face-to-face conversation, I would not even answer. And the belief came from what I saw in my experience and what I saw people around me is that, okay, one, if you don't take the time as a buyer to talk to a vendor to give some context and some more details about the request, then it's not worth my time as a vendor to answer to you. Then it means it's not really a project or there's some other thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was that I believed at that time, that's more than 10 years ago. And I also see this belief in many people today, even that you need this face-to-face conversation to apply your knowledge and your expertise and your everything you know about software, which cannot be codified, which cannot be structured. You need to do that face-to-face in a one-to-one conversation, or one-to-many if there are multiple parties involved. And I don't believe that anymore. Now I think that the projects are lost or won before the discovery.
Okay.
The research you do before, the decisions you took when you set the strategy, when you defined who are your customers, what types of problems you want to solve, how you structure your services to answer to those customers and to solve those problems, that will determine your win rate. And that will determine how much of the conversation, how many of the conversations you have with potential buyers transform into actual contracts and projects. And that's why I believe so much in AI as the solution to many of these problems in this context. It's because if you don't need to talk to customers to have the right solution to their problems and to have the right strategy, the right services in place, the right skills in the team to deliver on those, to solve those problems, then it means you can codify and you can structure it in a way that can be used, accelerated with AI.
Okay. So would you consider that as a different sales stage altogether, like a pre-discovery or whatnot, or do you still think that's part of the discovery that we are used to seeing in sales processes?
It's definitely a different stage. And there are, first of all, in my world, in my mind, discovery is the wrong word for this. Because discovery works if you are a commodity vendor. You have some very standardized services that you try to offer as at a low price to be competitive. And then you do discovery to understand what the buyer needs, what the buyer wants, to be able to give them a project proposal and a financial proposal. If you are a vendor selling higher value services, solving higher value or higher, uh, more complex problems for customers, and you want to position yourself as an expert and as a vendor that they can rely on, then you don't do discovery. You do alignment. You do calls to better understand the problem, but at the same time to help the potential buyer better define the problem. You should have more experience than they have in that topic, whether it's the technology stack that you're using, whether it's the process you're using to develop the software, whether it's the industry they're working in, and you had 20 other customers in the same space, then you should be in a position that you know more about the solution and the problem that they do, which means that you don't do discovery. You do alignment, you do solutioning, you do strategy in the first meeting. For that to work, you have to prepare. Yeah. And whether you call it preparation, research, whatever term we use, the consequence is the same, that you have to go in that first conversation better prepared than your buyer and in a position to tell them things they don't know they should know, or to surprise them with ideas, concepts, potential solutions they didn't even think about.
Right. That's so well put, and it's a quite a fresh perspective on things, especially because the way you described it, I see it as a pure effort of human creating value in terms of relationship with the potential customer, but AI or processes or automation doing the discovery, the background discovery on its own.
I want to pick on what you said.
Mhm.
Trust and the personal relationship will be key the more we use AI, because AI will be able to solve the technical solution and the financial part and the commercial and the legal part, all anything that can be described in a document where you have many options, you have complex problems and solutions that you can describe in a way that is understandable to the other party, that that is solved by AI. What AI cannot do is create trust and develop the personal relationship.
Mhm.
And this is where we will need people, and this is where people will make the difference.
Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I'm trying to think about this process from the other perspective, from maybe a negative perspective. Like, w- at the moment, what typically breaks in these discovery processes today? Like even before we add AI into the mix, what's your experience on that?
There are several patterns that I've seen. One is the limited view of the people involved in the meeting
Hmm.
on both sides. It might be, let's say, the simplest way to look at this is if you have somebody from the potential customer, from the buyer team, just let's say the operations person that is owner of the budget, and it's software for a department where they need something, but that function, that person doesn't have the engineering knowledge about software development, doesn't have the legal knowledge, doesn't have the ability to negotiate contracts as a buyer would have, as a professional buyer would. So there is a limited view there. And then you have a limited view on the vendor side, either because you only have a salesperson in the first meeting, and that person doesn't have the technical skills or the experience, the delivery experience to understand the complexity of the project. Or sometimes you have the delivery manager who's doing the first discussion, but that person doesn't have the sales and negotiation and communication skills and doesn't want to know about the legal stuff and doesn't care about that and doesn't have the financial expertise to understand all the implications. Most of the time in this conversation, in this typical discovery, but I hate that word, I don't want to use it too much.
Okay.
In the typical discovery meetings, you have limited views on both sides. Naturally, people will talk and they will exchange information in their area of knowledge, and all the other areas will be left on the side. You will have misalignment, you will have misunderstandings, you will have things that are ignored completely. And then you multiply this over multiple steps, multiple meetings, multiple types of documents exchanged. And at the end, the buyer sees a document, they understand something. The vendor sees another document and they understand something else. A contract is signed, but the contract doesn't really reflect the problem, the solution, the collaboration model, and so on. And most big companies try to solve this by involving multiple people, obviously. You create a buying committee and you create a complex team to do the selling, and you have salespeople who have the
Complex
relationship,
process. Yeah.
and you have technical sales, and you have delivery managers, and you bring in an architect and a technical lead, and that's not the solution. And we all know that doesn't really work because it's very difficult to synchronize everybody at the same time. You multiply the number of interactions needed and the number of connections between the people, which only increases complexity and makes it that it takes longer to decide, it takes longer to find solutions, it takes longer to synchronize the calendars to have a meeting in the first place, whether it's internal meeting or both parties at the same time. So it's just it just amplifies the inefficiency.
Yeah. And it might be that those people don't even hold the same interest at the table.
I'm not even getting into politics and misaligned incentives and how everybody is just trying to reach their KPIs and their targets and ignoring everyone else's, because even though they work for the same company, it feels like they work in different companies. We're not even going there.
Okay, let's put the AI layer into the mix, and let's dive even deeper into some scenario building. I'd like you to imagine AI participating in this stage. I didn't say discovery. Uh, could you walk me through these two fundamentally different approaches? So there's platform AI that generates questions, analyzes responses, versus collaborative AI that helps the team think through discovery together with the humans, right? What's actually different here? How does that work?
The first scenario is already happening, and we all see it happening in real time, where you have different people involved in these conversations who use AI in their own way, and some organizations are further along this path of trying to help their employees to use AI as efficiently as possible, and others are still reluctant or haven't really found a way to do that well. The consequence is that all those inefficiencies and misalignment is only exacerbated because there is no common vocabulary, there is no common structure. AI didn't align incentives between sales, delivery, and legal. AI didn't bring the knowledge of the technical people in the heads of the buying committee. It didn't solve the structural problem. And just adding, whether it's LLMs, Gen AI, whatever we want to call it, and whatever tools people are using, they are only using. I can only think of Henry Ford and his faster horse. It's like being in that environment. You have this technology, this capability of designing a car and trying to make it work, but people just use faster horses.
Hmm.
Right? yes, it feels like progress. It's faster. It feels like progress because you can generate a longer document quicker. It feels like progress because you can understand something. Definitely. If you get the documents from the customer and you have never worked in that industry, before, what did you have to do? You have to go to an expert, either in the team or outside the organization, to try to understand that industry. Very few people have the capacity to read the 3 documents and then understand something. Yeah, so they need context, they need other people to help. Now you can get a document from the buyer. You can use AI to process it, to review it, to ask questions on it, and it might feel like you understood what you needed to understand.
Yeah.
But just surface level. Yeah, that's artificial. It's an artificial understanding. You feel like you got it. You go to the next step, but at the next step, your colleague will use another LLM or another flow without that understanding, because whatever processing you did stays with you, and that's the structural problem. And this is where the difference with the second scenario you described, where if you do have a platform and you re-architect everything around the right way to do this, using AI, using people, humans in the loop, then that platform, that solution has the entire context. It has a structure, it has a standard, and then everyone involved operates with the same language in the same structure. And whatever they do with AI, without AI, they don't break the system.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense, and I feel like the first approach basically reduces human judgment and creates silos, whereas the second one enhances that and keeps everyone on the same page towards effectiveness and obviously better discovery stage.
I think we have to take this even further, and not because I want to, but because it will happen sooner or later in each team. Each team member in any organization, small or large, has some skills, some capabilities, some experience that is useful. But not every hour of every day of every week or of every year that we work, we are at our best. There are many tasks and projects and activities that we do where we are not the most efficient, where it's not the best use of our capabilities, where we don't have the right energy. And so on. What I imagine is that AI will slowly, in some cases, faster in others, pick on different of these tasks and activities and projects, and just take overtake them one by one, like take them over one by one. And at the end, some of us will be left with, I don't know, to simplify it to the maximum. Let's say I work, what is it, 1,500 hours in a year in a full-time job. I will be left with 300 hours of work, which are core of my capabilities and skills and expertise, where I cannot be overtaken by anyone else. Like, I need to be there to do that work. For some people, the result will be 1,000 hours, for others 300, for others it might be 0. And that is happening, and it will happen at a much bigger scale as the years pass. I don't think we can escape that. Different roles in different proportions, different companies in different rhythms, but it's happening. So the question here is, okay, if we take these roles that are involved in the negotiation of software projects, which skills, which capabilities, which actions are critical and need to be done by people, and which can be outsourced, which can be delegated, which can be extracted to be done faster, better, more scalably, more reliably by algorithms and AI.
I know you're not only talking about this or advocating about this, but you're also driving towards this. by developing an email-only architecture for AI in pricing. Tell me how this works for you. Why email versus platform when it comes to AI in pricing?
We already said that this is mostly a change management problem,
Mhm.
and just a better pricing algorithm to calculate rates and create a proposal will not solve anything. That's not the issue. And the issue is not how we calculate prices or how we create the proposal. The issue is how you get this internal alignment and how you get the alignment between the buyer and the vendor and how you manage all this complexity in a way that leads to a better outcome. If this is a change management platform, I just cannot imagine that in any large organization that has this problem and is trying to solve it, somebody, anyone can come and say, the solution for this problem is this software application where everybody has to log in separately. You have to put it a bookmark in your browser, or you have to install an application on your desktop, on your laptop, on your phone. And this is what we're going to use. I just can't see that happening in 2026 and beyond. So it needs to have another interface. We need a better way to do this at scale. And I know that we've been and people have been saying that email is dead for 20 years probably already, but still we use email, and nothing really replaced this medium at scale. And since we're working with artifacts, with documents, which are mostly PDFs, Word documents, contracts, proposals, RFPs, SOWs, all these documents are typically attachable to an email. Sometimes you put them in a drive or in a SharePoint and you send a link, but they're still essentially documents that you can attach to emails and exchange between different software environments and different operating systems. At the same time, it's communication. It's communication between the buyer and the vendor. It's communication between the internal members of each team, which means that most of the time, email is a good way to do that and a good way to get alignment. And that's why I think to solve this problem, email only is key, because it allows you to introduce another team member, a virtual team member, which you don't even have to think about. It's just there are typically 5 people involved in this deal. Now we have 6, and nothing changes. And this
Familiar. Yeah.
sixth colleague is part of every meeting virtually because it can process the transcripts, is part of every email chain, is part of every conversation around the proposal and the RFP and the technical solution. And it's there with the entire history of the company. It knows all the projects, it knows the business objectives, it knows the rates, it knows everything about the strategy, and it can just either react to, I got this document from the client. What does this mean for the deal? We received this email from the client asking about this topic. We have to answer it. And sometimes it's there to help you prepare. Other times it's there to ask for questions, so to make sure that you have the right answers. And other times it's there to say that to pinpoint that you missed something in a template and you didn't include the page in the proposal. And all this can be done with email.
Are there any constraints in terms of this virtual colleague, as you mentioned, talking to the outside world, like interacting, maybe taking over the human responsibilities while it gets, through the process and builds and learns and can eventually own it?
There are so many layers here. I don't even know where to begin. So this past weekend, we had the CloudBot slash MaltBot, I think it was renamed quickly. I don't know if you've seen it, where people have downloaded an open source agent. They gave access to everything they did. calendar, email, WhatsApp, everything, and it just ran wild. Yeah, and that's one extreme of how you can use the capabilities of AI agents to improve your processes and how you do things, and whether it's personal or professional. That technically it's possible. Yeah. The question is, or the thought that comes to mind is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah. So in this context of high stakes software contracts worth millions, sometimes a lot more, where you have very sensitive company data, client data, pricing data, contracts data that you need to access. For me, the rule is very simple: no communication with the outside world. So this is something that lives inside the company infrastructure. It doesn't do research outside. It doesn't send emails to customers. It doesn't send financial data to anywhere. It doesn't try to retrieve data from the outside. Everything is encapsulated and is strictly inside the company infrastructure. And I'm saying this not because it's not technically possible to go further. I just think this is more than enough for the moment, from a technical perspective, to use the capabilities that we know are possible to solve the economic problem, which is, how do you increase the value you capture from your customers without fundamentally changing what you're selling? Yeah. And this is where, if you do this, you don't need the system to write emails to the customers. You don't. Again, that's already happening in other industries. Yeah. And to go back to your initial question, yeah, when AI talks to customers, that's already happening in many industries. Yeah, we have customer support systems that answer to customers. You have e-commerce systems that talk to customers and sell products and services. We have multiple industries where this is already happening. Obviously, there's a much bigger incentive to do this when you have millions of customers, and it's B2C or small B2B, where your customers are in the hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, and you want to use this capability to make it more efficient, to grow at scale that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if you had to hire the people, or you want to fire the people to use AI. Fine, but I don't think we need to get there with IT and software services, because that is the type of efficiency that is just not worth it. You introduce so many other risks and you create so many other opportunities for failure, then it's just not worth the gains.
I think that's a great segue into our climax question, right? So the title of today's episode, and I would challenge you to go even further with what what are the consequences, or how the world would look like if only AI talks to customers, right? So take that a little bit further.
I would say that today, for 95 to 98% of use cases, that would be a disaster. And we've already seen many examples in the past year from different companies, from Salesforce that had to roll back their customer support initiatives with AI, from what was it, Klarna, I think, that did a huge push to use AI and then had to roll it back. So, and I think that's all the examples I've seen so far. Obviously, the negative things will always come up to the surface, and we will see them in the news. But I have not yet seen successful implementations where somebody can say, yes, I have no issue letting this autonomous system sell for me, take money from customers, make decisions. Like, there was I think the most ironic example I've seen was Anthropic, who built a vending machine in their office and let an AI run it. And it went bankrupt in a matter of days because it gave too many discounts to encourage people to buy the products it was selling. Yeah. So we're not there yet. Yeah. There are still too many variables, too many aspects that we have to take into account to reach the point where we can say, yes, AI can talk to customers directly and we can do that completely autonomously. Yeah. I'm sure there are some use cases, and I'm sure there are some companies in different industries and different corners of this world that have already done it. But I would say that for the vast majority of us, it's still not the case. It will probably be some years before we get there, but I would not put the bar so high. Like that's not the end goal. That's not the point. The
Right.
question for me is, what can we use today to capture more value than what we already do? Because we know we create so much value for the customers, but we don't get it. And that's the gap we need to close. It's not to go to 100% completely autonomous AI agents that talk to customers and we don't have to blame. That's not the point. We Even if you have AI involved in pricing, and you still have a lot of work to do in the decisions, in the strategy, in the learning, in the validation, in the controlling part, in the supervision part. Yeah, there are so many things still to do that I'm not even thinking about fully autonomous agents. That's not the point.
Okay. What I'm hearing, just a short takeaway. What I'm hearing is, at the moment, the aftermath of AI completely taking over this conversation could lead to bankruptcy. That's what I'm hearing
Absolutely.
as a final destination. Uh, I wanna move forward to giving the listeners some early warning signals that a company is heading down into this AI only discovery path. What should we be looking for to understand that this is happening, when it will be happening?
I would say the biggest sign is when somebody makes a decision to send a proposal, to change a price, to make a technical solution, to architect a technical solution in a certain way. You have decisions that are like taken every day, multiple per day, and you have a lot of rollbacks. Like you send something to the customer and then you realize, oh wait, no. Like 3 steps later, you realize, we need to change this because we didn't say the right things. Or you send the price and then you get pushback and you lose the project, or you actually sign the contract and then you realize later you cannot really deliver on that cost structure. Or the more rollbacks you have, like when people make decisions, even if they are wrong, these rollbacks don't happen because people don't like to admit they were wrong.
Mhm.
And pointing fingers, even though you know a colleague made a mistake, most of the time, especially in large organization, you're not going to say anything about
Right.
it. If you involve AI more and more and you don't have the proper structure in place, you will get mistakes. People will be very, very quick to point the finger to the AI because otherwise they have to take the blame. Somebody has to be guilty.
Right.
That for me is the early sign. The moment you have these rollbacks, you will immediately get also, and that happened because we used AI. That happened because somebody used AI in the wrong way. And I think that would be a very visible sign that things are not working out well.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's a great way to summarize the pattern that we might see if this happens. And a key takeaway for me today is that I'm starting to look at AI as an enhancer to team collaboration, not a replacement at all, especially with what we've discussed today. And that is the pattern that we should enhance, that we should be working towards. And it's probably another example of the amplification principle that we discussed about in the first episode as well. So again, thank you, Manu, for your insights. Thank you for sharing all these thought-provoking ideas. Um, but like even with a perfect discovery, there's still something AI consistently misses, and that is something that we will cover in the next episode when we're gonna aim to answer the question of, can AI price what it cannot see? So To everyone listening, if you're implementing AI in your sales processes, pause and ask yourselves, are we enhancing our team's discovery capability or are we replacing it altogether? That question matters more than which AI tool you will be choosing in the immediate future. So again, next episode, can AI price what it cannot see? We'll be diving into why customers pay for total cost, not just for your price, and why optimizing the visible while ignoring the invisible is a losing game. So again, thank you, Manu. Until the next episode, keep building your future. This is Catalin Rata, and we'll see you in the aftermath. Cheers, guys.